But before we move on with a few other things, Lana, we are about a little over a week now away from last week's the Democratic National Convention. Feels like everybody was coming off a very high. What are your feelings a week later? And what are your feelings, what were your feelings as you were watching it?
They are inclusive. It's like, you know what I'm saying? It's the Big Tent. And it's, again, like, I just feel like if the other side, because they've made this a side thing, right? Like, we talked about this before. Republicans weren't like this. Like, this is not a Republican thing. This is not conservatism. It's Trumpism, because no one ever had this kind of issue with the Bushes or we didn't deal. It wasn't like this. You were able to talk to one another, but now we're like, yeah, it's your side. We can't negotiate with anyone. Like, it's just so fucking childish and stupid. But it just showed you how inclusive and diverse it is. It's like you see people, and then they bought back like, hey, you know what? Democrats are patriots too. We can have flags too. And you don't
chant USA.
Right. And you don't get to dictate, like, just because you're a racist bigot, you think that America belongs to you, when it doesn't. You don't get to decide that. And especially Trump doesn't get to decide that. The guy who disrespects the US military and America at large.
Yeah. Well, this is the new Democratic Party, and I love it, because for too long, they allowed them to steal this narrative as they were the flag-waving patriots that loved our military. I'm not really sure how much they love this country. It seems to me Donald Trump is always up there talking about how terrible this country is.
And himself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so and not to mention, listen, sometimes when you hear circumstantial evidence, you got to put, logic on top of what decision you make as to whether it's true or it's not true. When I hear General John Kelly come out and say that Donald Trump called military people suckers and losers, and then you add that on top of what he said last week about the Congressional Medal of Honor, when you add that on top of what he said about John McCain, when you add that on top of he didn't go to the military gravesite in France because it was raining out and he didn't want to mess up his hair, when you add up all these things, who am I believing? A guy who's a lifelong grifter who has lied his entire life about everything. Or John Kelly, who was working for him in his administration.
Right. We've heard him, though. We heard him disrespect the Khan family, the Gold Star family.
Like why are they not putting that together? What is it? Because I know they just say that you want to hate Trump, so you're going to believe everything about it. But I mean, is there a point where we all have to sit down? Let's all say we're sitting in the same room and we're on a jury in this thing, and we have to come up with a verdict. And we have all the circumstantial evidence in this particular case. It seems pretty damning to me. How are you on the other side convincing me that this is not true?
Right. Because that's what they want to believe. But Trump said it. And again, what did Trump say? Trump said, I love the undereducated. That came out of his mouth. Like, we can't even make that up. He said that. Why did he say that? And it's like, everyone is like, but who do y'all think he's talking about? He's saying he loves the easily manipulated people.
That's what he's saying.
That's who he loves. So he knows that Kamala Harris had put out an ad today. What was that ad about? Helping first-time home buyers get a home.
Yep.
Donald Trump put out his ad for trading cards.
Oh, we're getting to that because that is probably we are literally in the most embarrassing time.
It is embarrassing.
I mean, at least in modern day politics, this has gone beyond embarrassing that you have a guy who is selling gold sneakers, he's selling Bibles, he's selling trading cards to his duped ass fan base that is so, I mean, and we're right. You're right to laugh. And I don't want to be in a world where we're laughing at our fellow Americans. I really don't. I swear to you, I don't. But this is the soup that they swim in. And this is where they want to be. And it is now to a point where they don't look at us, and they can make the case that we don't look at them the same way, but they don't look at us as not just non-Americans. They're looking at Democrats as enemies. They're literally wearing t-shirts saying, I'd rather be Russian than a Democrat. I mean, they vilify.
Like, what is wrong with you? Like, seriously, because I would never do that. Like, in
I wouldn't either.
years, I would just never do that, right? Nope. Like, I am going to talk about Trump's policies, whatever they are, because he's an idiot. I'm going to talk about him being a racist because, as you said, we can go down the list of things to prove that he's a racist. Like, the things come out of his mouth, right? That's what we're talking about. But I would never be like, I'd rather be in Russia than America, or I'd rather like root for Putin than Trump. Like, what the frick is wrong with y'all? Yeah, like, but Trump is right. He's right about one thing: the undereducated and the easily manipulated. Like, that is exactly what he says it, and then they do his bidding. Like, yeah. He's a master at that shit.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. And I promise everybody I'm going to get to the comments here, but we were talking about the Democratic National Convention last week.
One thing.
Yeah.
I knew that he was going to sell something because I'm like, when they started talking about Kamala setting that fundraising record, $500 million in a month, you knew right away Trump was going to sell something. I was like, wait for it. He's going to do something because, oh boy, you can't outdo me. So here comes the trading cards.
Yeah, and by the way, Lana, if you were in the comment section in the YouTube channel, you would think that Kamala Harris is way behind and that Donald Trump's blowing him out. I'm not really sure what polls they're looking at. And again, I don't put, you and I, we've talked about this before, we don't put all of our weight in these polls, but the trend in the polls are very, very interesting. But last week was the Democratic National Convention, and there was two contrasts, Lana, that I saw. They put together a couple of clips of the contrast between the DNC and the RNC. First contrast was their roll call that they had. And I said this on the show that I did last week. So I'm watching the DNC. I don't even really recall the roll call of the RNC because I did go back and watch it because I did have a lot of people saying, you didn't even watch it. You didn't even, and I don't know, sometimes I'll be honest, that will get to me. I'm like, you know what? Maybe they're right. I'll go back and I'll watch it because if I'm going to comment on it, maybe I've seen enough clips that I feel like I can comment on it, but you know what? Fuck it. Let's go back and watch the whole thing. But, the roll call started for the DNC, and of course, something we've never really seen before. I see this cat named DJ Cassidy, who I've never heard of. And I said on the show last week, I was like, you ever watch something like America's Got Talent? And you see the person come out on the stage and they talk about what they're going to do, and you see the judges going, oh no, this is going to be awful. That's how I was. I was like, oh, what are we doing? Lana, 2 states in, I was like, this is fucking awesome. I loved it. I couldn't wait to hear what song they were going to play for each state. I was trying to guess what they were going to play or what artist they play for that particular state.
Yeah.
And then little John came out. I was like, come on now. I wish I was pissed I wasn't there.
Right.
Let's look at the contrast of the roll calls between the RNC and the DNC.
Delegates are alternates and guests that maintaining order during the roll call is extremely important.
Yeah! Ladies and gentlemen, we are here tonight to officially nominate Kamala Harris for president.
Rule 16 of the rules of the Republican Party, state law, or state party rules.
Turn out for what? Turn out for what?
Donald J. Trump.
Donald J. Trump.
Hey, turn out for what? Yeah! Turn out for...
Thank you, delegates.
Everyone's so confused now.
We want to remind all
Listen,
alternates.
I mean, Lana, is that really? It's almost the same feeling as when you watch a Harris Walls, like you see their
Oh my God.
yeah, when you see their rallies versus a Trump rally now. The Trump rallies, they're all just kind of there, like, okay, we're just saying that we're here. You know, we did. You know, we're gonna say that we made it to a Trump rally, so it's cool. But nobody's really into it. They just aren't. And prove me wrong, but you could go back and watch a million clips of these rallies and people are just like, are we really fucking doing the windmill and shark thing again? And Hannibal Lecter
Nodding in the back.
Like, people were looking at their phones.
Just give us our check. We did that ad on.
Right.
Just give us the check. It's like we're out of here.
And of course, the Harris rallies, they're like concerts. And yeah, I know people are like, well, they only have celebrities there. That's why they do it. And if that's what you want to believe, that's okay, because that helps you settle, what's really happening. And it really,
Hulk Hogan, the hell,
that is true. They had the Hulkster and they had Kid Rock. Kid Rock brought down the house. You saw when they showed Melania Trump when she was like, what the fuck am I sitting in? He's paying me an extra 50 grand for this one. But beyond the contrast of just the roll call, Lana, we had the contrast between the two nominees and their acceptance speeches between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Let's take a look at the differences between the two.
It will be a president who unites us around our highest aspirations.
We are indeed a nation in decline.
You can always trust me.
I keep forgetting they wore those fucking like tampons and shit on their ears during that thing.
To put country above party and self.
We become a dumping ground for the rest of the world.
It is now our turn to do what generations before us have done, guided by optimism and faith to fight for this country we love.
Has anyone seen Silence of the Lambs?
Oh boy.
The late, great Hannibal Lecter. He'd love to have you for dinner.
We want to remind all our delegates, our alternates, and guests that maintaining order during the roll call is extremely important.
Is this? Oh, sorry. Okay. I mean, I don't know. The differences seem clear to me. I'm not on the other side, so I'm sure the differences seem clear to them. That his speech was way, way better than Kamala Harris's. Lana?
I mean, what it did show was that Trump is unfit. Like, it just showed that. He's unfit. He couldn't even stay on topic. We watched it. He was all Hannibal Lecter. Like, he rambled on for over 90 minutes with people trying to get out of there. Like, that is wild. While she was to the point, just concise, and hit on everything. Hit on foreign policy, hit on the economy, hit on the border, just all the things like, nah, you're not going to get us on the border because, dude, there's a bipartisan border bill sitting there that I'm going to sign as is because I've already seen it. You didn't see it, but you wanted to block it so you can run around and talk about illegals. Like, yep. Oh my. And then didn't even talk about that shit. Talked about Hannibal Lecter. Like, it's just wild.
That's just insane. First of all, a couple things I want to address. Number one, I've said this before. Don't try to gaslight me into thinking that the border is a top 10 issue. It's not. I'm done talking about the fucking border, to be honest with you. Do you know, Lana, I mean, if you really did the research, that, first of all, we are not even at the peak amount of people that have come through the border. That was back in 2007 under George W. Bush. So, yes, there are more people that have come through now, but it's really not that much off from the average that we see every single year. Donald Trump did lower the border crossings, maybe about 800,000. It's not like he was this guy who put an iron wall up like he promised he was going to.
It was up under.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't, because I did go back and look.
I thought it was lower under Obama, and then it went up under Trump.
I think the lowest peak, I think he had it down to the lowest peak, because I think Obama had it like at 11 million, and Trump did bring it down to like 10.2.
Was that during the pandemic?
I'll have to go back and look, but you know what? Like I said, either way, let's just roll with the fact that Donald Trump did lower it. But it's not like he did this unbelievable job where, now there was no more border crossings. What he did, though, is he was extremely cruel in the way he handled it. He separated families. And I guess these fucking babies and shit don't matter when it's not the nice little Christian kid that is being separated from his family.
No, stop. He doesn't care about Christian kids either.
Well, that's true too.
He doesn't care about white babies.
Hey, Lana, when I'm saying it though, I'm talking about the whole the JD Vances of the world and the other people who are actually. Donald Trump cares about nothing other than himself.
But none of them care about them, Brian, because
that's true.
Kids are getting shot in mass shootings. Sandy Hook, they didn't give a fuck about those kids. They don't care about these kids at what is that school that was in Tennessee? Those are little white kids in the Christian school.
Hey, Lana, yes, you're absolutely right. But so let me rephrase. Pretending like they care about those kids more than the other ones, because they do. They do a great job of making you think they give a shit about these kids, but they don't. You were absolutely right. The second thing that we can address and clear up right now, since there are some MAGA people in here who love to say this, that Kamala Harris got no votes. She didn't get any votes. So how do you feel about that? First of all, they went through the process. It was an open election, where people could have stepped in and put their name in the hat. They all decided not to. But here's the thing. You guys are the only ones complaining about it. We're all excited about her. And you know how we're excited about her? Record-breaking donations from small donors, not from individual small donors. These rallies are selling out. Her poll numbers have shifted this entire race in her favor. So what's the problem?
She raised a $500 million in a month.
It's insane.
That's not. You just don't do that.
And I want to make it clear: these are not by billionaires.
Two-thirds are low, right?
Correct. They were from
first-time donors too, right? Yeah.
Yeah,